Last week on Mindzilla, we started digging into the foundations of Hollywood, and what we found wasn't just movie studios. It was mystics, occult philosophers, rocket scientists performing ritual magic in the desert, and a scandalous underground book called Hollywood Babylon that claimed the Dream Factory was hiding something darker.
We also discovered that early Hollywood seemed to attract a very specific type of person: magicians, cult leaders, and people who probably shouldn't have been left alone with candles and ancient symbols.
And right before we ended that episode, we asked the question, what if the strange energy surrounding Hollywood didn't stop in a silent film era? What if the curse continued? Because in 1937, something happened that erased an entire chapter of film history. A massive fire ripped through a storage facility owned by Fox Film Corporation. Inside that building were thousands of reels of early cinema, silent films, historical recordings, pieces of Hollywood's origin story.
And they were stored on something called nitrate film, which is basically cinematic dynamite.
The fire burned so intensely that it destroyed most of Fox's silent era catalog. Hundreds of films gone forever. Some historians believe more than 75% of early Hollywood films are now lost because of nitrate fires like this.
Which is tragic, but also very explainable. Nitrate film is incredibly flammable. It's basically made of the same chemical family as gunpowder.
True, but here's where the conspiracy begins. Because that fire didn't just destroy films, it destroyed records, contracts, original negatives, early Hollywood documentation.
You're suggesting someone might have wanted that history erased.
I'm saying something strange about Hollywood's past keeps disappearing. Stories vanish, films burn, records are lost. And the deeper you dig into the early years of the film industry, the more it feels like parts of the story were never meant to survive.
Or early filmmakers were storing explosive film reels in wooden buildings during heat waves.
Maybe, but tonight we're exploring something else. The idea that Hollywood isn't just a movie industry.
Here we go.
It might be the modern world's mythology factory, a place where stories shape reality, where fame becomes immortality, and where some films might even carry a curse.
So tonight, we're talking cursed productions, secret tunnels, Hollywood, immortality obsessions, and apparently a weight loss drug conspiracy.
Welcome back to Hollywood.
Lights, camera, paranoia. Alright, Jess. Before we dive into cursed films, we should probably address the obvious one. Because whenever people talk about Hollywood curses, this movie always comes up first.
Yep, Rosemary's Baby, directed by Roman Polanski. A psychological horror film about a woman who slowly realizes the people around her might be part of a secret satanic cult.
Now, we actually talked about this briefly in our Manson family episode, so we won't go deep into it again.
But the reason the film's still part of Hollywood conspiracy lore is what happened next. 1 year after the movie came out, Polanski's wife, Sharon Tate, was murdered in Los Angeles by followers of Charles Manson.
A real-life tragedy that shocked the world. And again, before anyone starts sending emails, there's no evidence the film caused anything.
Of course not. But the timing was eerie enough that people started whispering about something new.
Which was...
The idea that certain Hollywood productions might be cursed.
And once that idea entered the Hollywood rumor mill...
It never left.
Which brings us to the films that made the curse legend explode. Once the idea of cursed productions entered Hollywood folklore, people started noticing other films that seemed to have very strange things happen during production.
And 3 horror films came up again and again. almost like the unholy trinity of cursed cinema. First up, we got The Exorcist, one of the most famous horror movies ever made. But the production itself started developing a strange reputation.
For starters, the set caught fire. A massive blaze destroyed most of the filming location.
And weirdly, the one room that didn't burn? The possessed girl's room.
There were also multiple injuries during filming, actors getting hurt, crew members having accidents.
And several people connected to the production died shortly after filming wrapped, which led to something unusual happening on set.
They actually brought in a priest to bless the production.
Which is never something you want to hear about on a romantic comedy. Then we get Poltergeist, and this one might be the creepiest.
Because one production decision that still freaks people out.
The scene where the actress falls into a pool filled with skeletons? Well, those were real human skeletons.
Apparently, they were cheaper than plastic ones at the time, which is a sentence nobody should ever have to say.
Then tragedy started happening. Young actress Dominique Dunne was murdered by her ex-boyfriend. A few years later, the child star of the series, Heather O'Rourke, died suddenly at just 12 years old.
Which led to the rumor that the entire Poltergeist series was cursed.
And finally, we have The Omen, a movie literally about the Antichrist.
Which, as it turns out, has some very strange coincidences around the production.
Planes carrying members of the cast and crew were struck by lightning more than once.
The special effects artist working on the film was later killed by a tiger while filming another project.
And several near disasters happened during production, including aircraft accidents that crew members narrowly avoided.
Which led people to start whispering that the movie itself was cursed.
Because when you step back and look at all three productions together, you see a lot of unfortunate coincidences, or a pattern.
At some point, coincidences start looking like patterns, and at some point, horror films start attracting dramatic headlines.
Either way, the idea of cursed Hollywood productions had officially entered the mythology.
And Hollywood's mythology, as we've learned, never dies. Now, if we're talking about strange symbolism in Hollywood history, we'll probably have to talk about the most famous landmark in the entire industry.
The Hollywood sign, except originally it didn't say Hollywood.
It said Hollywoodland.
The sign was built in 1923 as a giant real estate advertisement for a luxury housing development in the hills above Los Angeles. The project was backed by powerful investors, including newspaper publisher Harry Chandler.
At the time, it wasn't meant to be permanent. It was basically the world's largest billboard.
But like a lot of early Hollywood history, things around the project quickly became messy. There were bitter land disputes, aggressive real estate deals, and rumors of suspicious deaths among people connected to early Hollywood development.
To be fair, Los Angeles land development in the 1920s was basically the Wild West.
But the sign itself would become tied to something much darker, because in 1932, an actress named Peg Entwistle climbed the giant Hollywoodland sign and jumped.
She had struggled to find work in Hollywood, and her death quickly became one of the industry's earliest tragedies.
Which means one of the most famous symbols of Hollywood is connected to one of its most haunting stories.
Hollywood literally begins with a giant sign overlooking a suicide.
Symbolism much?
Or tragedy turned into mythology.
Either way, the Dream Factory has always had a darker shadow behind it.
Alright, since we're already deep into Hollywood mythology, let's talk about the rumor that the city has a second version of itself underground.
This one pops up constantly in conspiracy circles. The claim that Los Angeles has a hidden network of tunnels beneath the city, not just a few maintenance passages, an entire underground web.
Now, to be fair, there are tunnels under Los Angeles. Historically, the city had Prohibition era tunnels used to move alcohol, sealed transit corridors from abandoned subway plans, old smuggling routes beneath downtown.
But the conspiracy version goes much further. According to the theory, some of these tunnels connect Hollywood studios, elite mansions, luxury hotels, and private gathering spaces.
Which would basically mean there's a secret Hollywood under the real Hollywood.
Yes, a hidden layer where powerful people can move around the city without being seen. No paparazzi, no traffic, and no public.
Los Angeles barely works above ground. The idea that it secretly has an efficient underground system might be the most unbelievable part of this episode.
Still, cities all over the world have hidden infrastructure that most people never see. And when a place already has a reputation for secrecy, people start wondering what else might be hidden.
And Hollywood has never exactly been famous for transparency.
Which means if there was a hidden Hollywood underground, it would actually be the perfect place for it. Alright, next conspiracy on the Hollywood hit list predictive programming, a theory that absolutely refuses to die. The idea that the Hollywood films and television secretly reveal future events before they happen, not as warnings, but as psychological condition.
So the claim is basically the powers that be leak future plans through movies.
The theory says powerful institutions, governments, intelligence agencies, elite groups work with media creators to normalize shocking events before they occur. So when those events actually happen, people already feel familiar with them.
Like we've already watched the trailer for reality.
Yes, conspiracy researchers call this predictive programming.
And I assume the internet has examples because the internet always has examples.
Oh, plenty. Pandemics are a big one. Movies like Contagion showed global lockdowns, overwhelmed hospitals, vaccine debates years before COVID happened.
We watched that film during lockdown, which, by the way, was a terrible life decision.
Some conspiracy communities argue that the movie basically mapped the public reaction almost perfectly.
Or, hear me out, if you ask epidemiologists how pandemics work, they might describe a pandemic.
Okay, Mr. Logic, but pandemics aren't the only example. People also point to surveillance dystopias. Movies and TV have spent decades showing worlds full of mass digital surveillance, facial recognition systems, predictive policing, social credit scoring.
Which are all things that now actually exist.
Exactly. So believers say Hollywood was conditioning us to accept it.
Or writers just noticed where technology was heading. Sci fi has been doing that forever.
Another one conspiracy communities love elite secret societies. Films like Eyes Wide Shut show masked gatherings of powerful elites performing strange rituals.
Ah, yes, the world's least comfortable dinner party.
Some conspiracy theorists believe Hollywood occasionally slips fragments of truth into fiction. And there's even an idea called revelation of the metas.
That sounds like a villain monologue.
The theory is that elites must reveal their plans symbolically. If the truth is shown as fiction first, the public can't later claim they weren't warned.
So it's basically cosmic fine print.
Yes, and believers say there are tons of strange coincidences, TV episodes referencing disasters before they happen, movies showing eerily similar political events years early, animated shows predicting technology that later exists.
Let me guess, The Simpsons is probably involved somehow.
How heavily the internet thinks that show has predicted half of human history.
To be fair, when a show runs for 30 years and writes hundreds of episodes, statistically, it's going to get a few things right.
Skeptics say the same thing. They argue these are just coincidences amplified by hindsight bias.
Which is a fancy way of saying people love connecting dots even if the dots were never meant to connect.
Maybe, but maybe writers understand power structures better than we realize. If you're sitting in the same rooms as politicians, billionaires, and intelligence agencies, you might accidentally hear the future.
Or if you make 10,000 movies about disasters, eventually one of them will look prophetic. That's not a conspiracy, that's statistics.
All right. Now we move to a conspiracy that's a little less secret society and a little more Hollywood body horror.
I feel like that describes most of Hollywood.
Hollywood has always been obsessed with youth. Actors in their 30s play teenagers. Actors in their 70s play action heroes. And aging has basically been treated like a career ending disease.
Meanwhile, normal people hit 30 and their knees sound like popcorn,
But modern conspiracy culture has focused on something new, a drug called Ozempic.
which was originally designed for type 2 diabetes.
It belongs to a class of drugs called GLP-1 agonists. Basically, it slows down digestion, regulates blood sugar, and suppresses appetite, which means people can lose a lot of weight very quickly.
And naturally, Hollywood saw that and went, yes, please, inject it directly into my career.
Pretty much. Hollywood observers started noticing strange patterns. Celebrities appearing on red carpets dramatically thinner within months. Entire friend groups in Hollywood suddenly shrinking in size at the same time.
Like some kind of celebrity Hunger Games.
Hollywood insiders even started whispering about something called the skinny shot.
Which sounds like a cocktail you order at a terrifying nightclub.
There's a phenomenon people online now call Ozempic face. Rapid weight loss can cause visible facial changes, hollow cheeks, sagging skin, and premature aging.
So, ironically, the drug meant to preserve youthful bodies can make faces look older.
And critics say the pressure to stay thin in Hollywood has just evolved. In early decades, actors relied on extreme dieting, cigarettes, and amphetamines.
Ah, yes, the golden age of Hollywood health plan.
Now, critics say it's simply medicalized thinness, designer pharmaceuticals instead of starvation.
Same pressure, better packaging.
There was even a strange real world side effect. Demand for Ozempic became so high that at one point diabetes patients struggled to get it because prescriptions were being written off label for weight loss.
Which is a pretty bleak example of celebrity culture hijacking a medication meant for an actual disease.
Hollywood has always sold youth. Now it might be chemically manufacturing it.
Or rich people discovering a new diet drug, which historically is extremely on brand for Hollywood.
All right, we have now arrived to one of the biggest modern internet conspiracies about elites, adrenochrome.
Ah, yes, the conspiracy theory that managed to combine Hollywood, vampires, and the internet all into one chaotic mess.
So here's the claim. Some conspiracy communities believe powerful elites harvest a substance called adrenochrome. And according to the theory, they use it to stay young, stay powerful, or even achieve some kind of altered consciousness.
Which sounds suspiciously like the plot of a very intense horror film.
The substance itself is real, is simply a chemical compound formed when adrenaline oxidizes. It's been studied in medical research for decades. But the idea that elites are harvesting it from people to gain magical powers, there's no credible evidence supporting that claim.
So, the chemical exists. The vampire storyline? Not so much.
Right. But the reason this theory exploded online is interesting because Hollywood already has a reputation for extreme secrecy. Private parties, NDAs, exclusive cycles of wealth and influence.
And when you combine secrecy with the internet, your imagination sometimes fills in the blanks.
or connects the dots. The more secretive an industry becomes, the more conspiracy theories start to grow around it.
Hollywood basically runs on NDAs. At this point, the real conspiracy might just be how many lawyers are involved in every dinner party.
Still, when an industry is built on power, money, and image, people are always going to wonder what happens behind the curtain.
Right, we've talked about curses, secret tunnels, elite parties, and Hollywood miracle weight loss injections. Where exactly are we going next?
To the biggest ritual Hollywood performs every single year, the Academy Awards.
The night where millionaires give trophies to other millionaires for pretending to be different millionaires.
But here's where conspiracy writers get interested. The famous Academy Award statue itself. Some researchers claim its design looks suspiciously similar to ancient Egyptians' funerary statues.
Okay, now I'm curious. Explain that one.
Look at the posture, rigid, upright, almost ceremonial. The statue holds a sword and stands on a film reel with five spokes, representing the original branches of the Academy. But conspiracy writers argue the pose resembles statues placed in Egyptian tombs to represent the soul's journey into the afterlife.
So the theory is Hollywood created its most famous trophy based on ancient Egyptian death symbolism.
Not exactly death, more like rebirth. In ancient Egypt, statues in tombs were sometimes designed to preserve the identity and legacy beyond death, a form of symbolic immortality. Now think about what Hollywood promises.
Fame, legacy, and your face projected on giant screens forever.
Exactly. The conspiracy interpretation is that the Oscars represent something deeper than just an award, a kind of symbolic rebirth into cultural immortality. Win the statue, and your name lives forever in film history.
Or, and hear me out, it's a knight holding a sword.
Hollywood absolutely treats fame like immortality, though.
Fair point, people may age, but their movies don't.
And in Hollywood, being remembered forever might be the closest thing to eternal life that is.
We've covered quite a lot.
And when you step back and look at all of it together, a pattern starts to appear.
Go on then, connect the red string on the conspiracy board.
All right. Look at the timeline. Hollywood begins with mystical communities like the Theosophical Society building colonies in the hills. Then you get occult philosophers like Aleister Crowley influencing artists and filmmakers. Then, a literal rocket scientist, magician like Jack Parsons performing rituals while helping invent modern rocketry. Then, Hollywood scandal mythology exploding through books like Hollywood Babylon. And then cursed productions. Then modern conspiracies about elite secrets and eternal youth.
So, what you're saying is Hollywood isn't just an entertainment industry,
Hollywood produces something far more powerful.
money.
Myths, modern mythology. Think about it. Hollywood creates heroes, villains, gods, monsters, tragedies, redemption stories, the entire worlds people believe in.
So, the final conspiracy is Hollywood isn't magical.
No, it's something stranger than that.
What's that?
It's the place where modern civilization writes its myths.
Ancient cultures had temples and legends. We have movie studios and streaming platforms.
And just like ancient mythology, the stories sometimes hide the uncomfortable truths about power, fame, and human nature. And speaking of uncomfortable truths, last episode we briefly mentioned a man who joined occult rituals, ran off with the ritual money, and later founded an entirely new religion.
That man was Al Ron Hubbard.
Next week, we follow the money.
And the aliens.
Oh, yes. Next episode, the strange Hollywood story of the Church of Scientology.
Because apparently in Hollywood, even the religions come with a plot twist.
Stay woke
Stay skeptic.
and stay away from Ozempic. Bye.
Bye.